All right, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Um, it has been a good while. Um, Last week, a lot of things happened that just made it difficult to stream before I went on vacation with my family. Actually, it was the week before. So it's been almost 2 weeks. So I've had, well, I streamed. No, I didn't stream last Sunday. I didn't stream Monday or Thursday. We were on vacation. Marcus, good to see you, man. Thanks for showing up today. Man, it has been a while. It's been almost 2 weeks. Thank you guys for being patient with me. My family, we went to the Bahamas, on a cruise. Um, so we left, uh, actually last Saturday. We had to be to the airport at 4 a.m. Um, Salt Lake City is, I don't know, probably at 4 a.m. It's half an hour to the airport from here in Salt Lake City. But we weren't really sure about traffic or anything like that, so we got a hotel room that we stayed in near the airport that night. We woke up at 4 a.m., went and parked the car Sunday morning, and then got on a flight. Flew 3 hours to Detroit. Then we were in Detroit for an hour, and then we flew 3 hours to Miami. Then we spent the day in Miami, had a good time there. And then Monday we got on a cruise ship. Um, and this was our first cruise as a family. Um, so we didn't really know what to expect. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of fun stuff about it. One of the things that really bugs me um, is just how pervasive tipping culture has become in the US. Um, and it really was driven home for me on the cruise ship. Um, so um, it was a nice trip. Um, it was, and hey, Sean, thank you for your help before. Also, um, it was a really nice trip. Lots of sun, lots of very incredibly blue water. We went and got to do some cool stuff. Yeah, tipping culture is it's ridiculous. So, like in the U.S., you kind of develop a second sense for it because it's everywhere. But man, on a cruise ship, it is just in your face. Um, and so, like, one of the things that I did is I paid for a drink package, right? To to get like apparently to even get soda with your meals, you have to, you have to pay for every soda and everything. So like, even though it's all inclusive except for certain things, right? And so paid for this soda package. I was supposed to get free drinks all day. And oh man, like to get a free drink, you have to go up to the bar. You wait for the bartender to show up. You say, "Hey, I want a Coke." Great. He goes and he grabs a can, plops a glass of ice in front of you, opens a can, and that's it. Then he turns around and goes to the he goes to the register and enters in your Coke, and you get a receipt for $0. But then there's a line for a tip, and it's like, dude, you just opened a can and set a glass of ice in front of me. Um, so I mean, tipping for somebody to like, I can open the can, just give me the can. I don't care about the glass of ice. Um, or just put the can somewhere where I can just access it easily and not have to tip somebody. And it's just that way everywhere. Uh, I used to be more of a fan of tipping culture. Now ugh, it's horrible. It's just horrible. Like, uh, it's so weird in the U.S. now. Like, um, the one that really just started pushing me over the edge was a few years ago. Um, I go into like a gas station. um, a convenience store, um, and grab a few snacks. I was on a trip in California, San Jose. I was in a convenience store, self checkout in the convenience store, checked myself out. Um, Last screen, hey, do you want to leave a tip? What am I going to tip this stupid machine? I went and got everything. I checked myself out. Who am I tipping? It's just stupid stuff like that. And then the other thing that's becoming more and more pervasive is they'll sneak a gratuity onto your bill. So like every bill I got on the cruise ship, even at dinner that was supposed to be all inclusive and stuff, right? So like if my daughters really like pina coladas, so they would order virgin pina coladas with dinner. Um, Fine, whatever. Expensive icy drink. Who cares? We're on vacation. But then that comes back to the table as a receipt asking for a tip again, but snuck into there, they've already included an 18% gratuity. So they've already included a tip, but then they've got a line for a tip. So if you're not paying attention and you throw a 20% tip on top of that, you've already tipped 18%. Now you're throwing 20% on. It's a mess. And here I am ranting about it, right? The cruise itself was amazing. Like the staff, they were awesome. The people who cleaned our rooms were great. We got a room with a balcony, so we were able to sit. When we were out at sea, we were able to sit out on the balcony and just look out over the ocean. See the stars at night, which is something we don't really get where I live in Utah. There's a lot of light pollution. And so, being able to sit out on the deck and, the first night, my my wife, I was like, "Hey, you gonna go sit out on the deck?" She's like, "No, it scares me." I was like, "What?" She's like, "It's too dark." And I go out there and I was like, "Wow, it is dark out here," which was awesome. But once your eyes adjusted, you could see, out across the ocean. You could see the stars. It was amazing. And cruise ships are very structured in their schedules. So like you'll hit certain ports, and then they give you times. Like if you have to get on a boat, a tender that will take you, you know, sometimes a cruise ship will dock off the edge side of an island because it's not deep enough for the cruise ship to actually dock. So you get on these tenders and they'll take you in. So they're very structured in your times. And then they're very structured on when you have to leave. And one thing they make sure that you know is that if you're not on the ship, they will leave you. And so um, that was interesting. But the islands that we went to were beautiful. It was fun being in the ocean, scuba diving with my wife and daughters. Not scuba, sorry, snorkeling. We don't scuba dive. We're not trained in it. Um, if I did more stuff in the ocean around reefs, I might get scuba certified, but um, snorkeling's good enough for me for right now. A lot of fun, and I mean the water is just beautiful, amazing. Um, and the thing I really have to worry about is sunburning, right? So um, yeah, we had a lot of fun. Anyway, we're looking at the upgrades that are left to go. Um, I'm still not upgrading ESLint. And the reason for that, and I learned something today. I didn't realize um, that the Angular ESLint rules, which are maintained by the amazing James Henry, um, had an NG update. I don't know why that didn't even click. It's got Angular in the name. Why wouldn't it have an NG update? So I went through and did that. There are going to be some serious migrations coming in the future. And I read through the breaking changes. So because we're doing Angular 18, I needed to upgrade to ESLint rules for 18. Um, and so, there's a bunch of stuff inside of here. And we can no longer use ESLint v7. That's fine. But one thing that was interesting in these docs is the latest version of ESLint v9 with the latest default called flat config alongside the latest pre-release of TypeScript ESLint v8, right? So we're still on TypeScript ESLint v7. We're not going to grab the pre-release. I don't want to mess with linters. But one thing, where is it? You don't need to install the ESLint package. It just needs to be listed. So yeah, here, if you want to manually migrate your workspace to use ESLint v9 and flat config, you're welcome to do so. But they say if you want to do that, they recommend creating a Angular 18 flat and all of that. But they said that the ESLint team are working on an auto migrate tooling. So once it's ready in a V18 minor, then they'll run it for you. Otherwise, we can expect a full auto migration in version 19, according to this. So I'm not going to mess with the ESLint version and go to version 9 yet. We're going to stay on version 8 of ESLint. But the rest of this stuff, like the TypeScript ESLint, this stuff, we're going to stay in version 7 so we don't have to deal with things. So this recommended upgrade is good. Node will grab. These ones are all safe. Cypress, we're good. JS DOM. Yeah, we'll just finish grabbing all of this stuff. And so if we just grab this, just make sure that it grabs the proper stuff and then let it finish. And then I haven't compiled anything because thank you, Marcus. I'm glad you loved. Yeah, it was great spending time with the family. I will admit, I'm still feeling a bit of the ship right now. So if I do this, my world still bobs. It's really weird being on, dry land and feeling like I'm on a boat. But that's okay. It was well worth it. Had a great time. No, I'm not streaming from. Oh man, internet on the ship is horrible. I'm home now. Yeah, this is my home office. Yeah, I couldn't have streamed from the ship. The amount, I think it was $100 per day for their highest tier internet package. And if I tried streaming from that, they would have, I think it's like a $500 fine and just crazy stuff like that, right? Like everything on the ship, if you do something they don't agree with, it's a $500 fine. One, I'm not paying $100 a day for internet, and two, I'm not going to risk a $500 fine for that. So, yeah, I got home Friday evening. So yesterday we were trying to get over the jet lag. This morning, still trying to get over jet lag, just from the time zone changes. And you guys who've traveled understand really well. Going east to west is a lot easier for me in terms of jet lag. So a few years ago, my family, we went to Hawaii, and in a couple of days we were recovered. And then when we came home, within a day or two, I was recovered. Whenever I go, west to east, it always takes me a few days to catch up. And then once I do, when I come back home, I'm also messed up. So right now, my body thinks it is what? It's a little afternoon to my body right now, which is weird because, like for my streams, I tend to like to sleep until 9 a.m., get up, get ready, start streaming at 10 a.m. finish by noon, and then get ready for the day. Um, I was up at 7 a.m. this morning because my body thought it was 9 a.m. Um, and um, you know, it, usually when I don't know, I'm a night owl, so I don't go to bed early at night. Um, let's get this going while I'm talking. Um, and so yeah, hours of sleep is always difficult when I go back in time. And my body adjusts really well to being up late. It doesn't adjust really well to getting up when I stay up late. So um, there's a little bit of that. I'm still a little bit dizzy, feeling like my head's just doing this all the time. I imagine it's starting to get better. Now it's only if I make big moves like this, or if I like move my arm for some reason. Um, but it's interesting because um, like on smaller boats, you feel the rocking more, right? On the cruise ship, I hardly ever felt the rocking, and like the very first day there, we took some Dramamine just to make sure it's best to not get sick. But none of us really felt it, even in like the giant ballrooms where there's a bit of movement, but there's no windows to the outside, so you're um, that's a lot of what causes motion sickness, right? Is your brain is telling you, your ears are telling your body that you're moving, but your eyes, right? Everything's so the whole ship moves with you. Um, and so your eyes detect no motion, but your ears are like, oh yeah, you're definitely moving, right? And so that difference is what causes your brain to go, something's wrong, and can cause a seasickness in people. Um, and so we all did really well with it. My oldest daughter, she loved it. Being on a cruise ship, we're like, yeah, just make it back to the room so that you can get up early enough so that we can go do our stuff. Don't make us late. But go hang out with your friends. So she absolutely loved just the freedom to do what she wanted. Hey, Abradores, I'm doing great. I was on vacation. Hey, it's good to hear that you're coding also. Node.js, specifically Nest.js. I think that could also be a very decent stack for jobs. Nest plus React and Angular. Um, the last stream I did, if you go back on YouTube and look at the Angular dynos, we were using. We could go take a look at that, right? So let's go take a look at github.com/me, and we'll look at Angular dynos, I believe. That is not it. We'll just go to my page. And what did I call it? I called it full stack dynos. I need to come up with a consistent naming convention. But if we look inside of here, in the package.json, we can see that we're using Nest. So yeah, we're using Swagger, we used GraphQL, and my GraphQL and Apollo stream with Nest is probably one of the saltiest streams I've ever done. So if you want to see me be salty and laugh at that, go check that out. Yeah, Nest is pretty cool. And it lines up, like you said, really well with Angular. And I actually really enjoyed using it. I have a lot of experience doing like full stack in .NET, and not the newer, more modern .NET stuff, but like .NET Core. I think I don't remember the numbers. It's been probably 4 or 5 years since I've done an API in .NET. So that may be something I may have to do just to get Marcus to laugh at me and help me through it. Learn something from Marcus. But yeah, the new modern .NET stuff I don't know as well. But .NET uses decorators, very, very similar to the way Nest does, and it also structures things very similar to the way Nest does with services and things like that. Um, so I found it really natural to work in, um, and um, we used Prisma. So stuff that we generated in Nest was instantly available in .NET, and so there's a lot of stuff here. Good stuff. Package JSON for this is, let's see, Angular 17.1. We may go back and upgrade this to 18. I'm thinking about upgrading. So the Sudoku stuff I want to upgrade and do zoneless. I may do the same for full stack dynos, but that's what we're going to do today. So there may be a bit of upgrading, just because. And what I'll probably do um, is we'll tag this as the Angular 17. And so if we need to do an Angular 17 branch for whatever reason, we can. But then we'll upgrade everything to Angular 18. So yeah, but yeah, Nest is really cool, operators. Highly recommend it. And I'm glad to see that you're back in. What is going on here? I'm glad to see that you're back in coding. Um, so task manager, what do we have you? Oh, we got something chewing up a ton of CPU. What is it? WMI provider host. Desktop window manager. So, wow, it's really slowing down. So, did you guys? I learned something new that I didn't even know was a thing. Um, but in the task manager, and apparently this has been here forever. But see how it's jumping around like this? If I hold down the control key, all the jumping stops. As soon as I let go of it, it jumps around again. I had no idea that existed. I learned that really recently. I can't even remember what was. That's the Alienware stuff. This we'll take a look at the properties here. The WMI is a Windows messaging interface, and I'm not sure why it's going so crazy right now. But if we go take a look at our node, I know every once in a while node tends to get frozen. I can kill that. So this snaz tool is pretty cool. This is the tool that allows me to do the countdowns and stuff. But from what I've read, it chews up a ton of processing. And it can use it can use just a bunch of stuff, a bunch of resources in the background too. I'm trying to see. Oh, dude, I turned this off. I use the Bing wallpaper. Come on, can I not hover over this? You can usually show your desktop. Actually, I can do it this way. No, that's not the right way. This one. It's going to blur everything out. All right. Whatever. I use the Bing wallpaper to give me different wallpapers in the background. But holy cow, is that? First of all, I don't want your stupid VPN service. I keep telling you that. But that should be turned off. They're not using my CPU. Okay, there we go. Finally, never mind. I keep my task manager on my other screen, mainly because I like to keep it up when I'm running LLMs and like image generation stuff. And that's one thing. That's one thing that I wanted to ask is if you guys are interested in maybe like one-off streams where we would do image generation. Let me see. Let's see here. So give me just a second. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't have anything in here. Like sometimes I'll have resumes or things in here, or well, here's mine, right? But I might have them in here for other people, and because people will send me resumes to review, or um, for various reasons. I just didn't want anybody's name in here that I didn't want to show on stream, right? Um, but so this was something that I worked on 2 weeks ago, just before the stream. It's based on my two daughters, in kind of a fantasy setting. I'm still working on this, trying to get it cleaned up a bit more. But this is all done in Comfy UI. You can tell by up here. And then the funny thing is that I'm using Wonder Woman a bit for the pose here, and so we're getting a bit of Wonder Woman's costume and boots. And this person, I'm using a character that my daughter and I generated a while ago. And then we've got characteristics of my older daughter here and my younger daughter here. And we're working on kind of a fantasy type background, just setting that up. But this takes a good deal of time to set this up. I spent all day Sunday 2 weeks ago just getting to this point, and there's more stuff to do. But if anybody's interested in learning like more advanced image generation techniques, because one of the things that's difficult when you start doing AI art is multiple people. So I've actually got this part of the scene is drawn separately from this part, and that's what keeps the bodies from merging, and keeps Comfy from, or keeps SDXL, the image generation model, from doing weird things. So I don't know. If you guys are interested in that, I'm thinking about doing some one-offs on just how to do that. Oh, I built that image from scratch. So yeah. So you're asking what Nest.js looks like. Let's take a look at some Nest.js code really quick, and then we'll get back into. We'll actually compile and see if everything builds. So if we go into our packages here, and then into the Dynos API, So this is what Nest looks like. You're going to see it looks very, very similar to Angular. You're going to have your app and your assets, and it's going to launch on a main.ts. You'll see that it's fairly simple TypeScript code. We create a Nest factory, and this is how you add Swagger to it. This is how we enabled cores. The global prefix adds the /API to our routes. We added the /API. We set up Swagger for that. And then the other thing we did is we set up validation based on our models. And you can turn these debug messages on and off. I left them on because we weren't releasing this. What I would do in a production environment is I would say, if we're in production, then enable debug messages false. Otherwise, enable debug messages true. And then, we're grabbing the port from the environment variables, and then we listen on the port, right? It's very, very similar to what you would do in basically any, even like this is very, very similar to what you would do in Express or anything like that. And I think Nest is built on top of Express, so that makes a lot of sense, right? And then we log out some information. This is us setting up Swagger. But the other thing we've got in here, we're going to take a look at our app. You'll see that it's set up very, very similar to like .NET, but Angular also, where we've got modules and we've got controllers and services, right? Service controllers handle routes, services provide data. So if we look in the module, very similar to the way Angular used to be before we before we got rid of modules. So, we're configuring the module for root, and then we add our GraphQL module, right? I'm adding two GraphQL modules, first the test module, and then the actual one, and, giving it information about that. And then, so, very, very similar to Angular where we've got decorators, modules, things like that. And then like the controllers, you can see that they're just decorators, right? So we've got a controller decorating our app controller class. This is a get route, so we just decorate it with an @get. This is very, very similar to what you would do in .NET, right? And here we're decorating a get route with parameters and telling it, hey, what kind of response we're going to get back. And so these are all Swagger. No, these aren't Swagger. These are. Yes, these are all Swagger. Never mind. These are all Swagger controllers. And then, like app services is what's getting the data for our different, well, we do have an OpenAI one here. But we can also look in our GraphQL. And so inside of here, we decorate our fields with fields, and we tell it, hey, this is a UUID. And this stuff right here generates our Swagger gen, but it also allows us, we saw that I added validation. This stuff generates the metadata necessary for the validation to work too. So the validation all exists in one place. And then, in GraphQL, you use resolvers. So these are our resolvers. They've got decorators on them. For Prisma, and then, we've got our service that actually does the GraphQL using Prisma. We do the queries and then return things as GraphQL. So it's all really feels really at home for people who are used to Angular or .NET. So I've really enjoyed Nest. Go ahead and kill this. Let's see. Let's go ahead and Just look here. So contentful updated. A couple other things updated. So we're just going to say, hey, let's stage all of this. And we updated our dependencies. So now we'll push this. The main reason I haven't pushed is I think I've got a file committed that I don't want committed. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm actually going to squash these commits. So I'm going to revert the change that I did in that file, and then I'll squash it. And then, so yeah. But yeah, getting back to your question, Chandu, about the image generation from scratch. I do I do some anime image generation. I do my youngest daughter's into a lot of anime, so we'll generate images based on family members in the style of her favorite anime. I also do a lot of fantasy art generation. And then I help my daughters with work for school, like stuff for school. So my daughter had to one of her assignments a year ago was she needed to generate like a Netflix type screen or or a make believe World War II show, right? That was basically her teacher saying, "Hey, show me what you know about World War II." So we generated some images of for her show of people in trenches, and we were able to use Comfy to put the same people over and over again, right? So you had continuity for the show, and then at the end, just to mess around, we added dragons to the World War II scenes, which was kind of hilarious and funny. Um, and so, yeah, just doing fun things like that and showing um, how you can use tools. So there are a lot of image generation tools out there. Um, there's automatic 1111, which is probably the most popular. There is Focus, which is spelled with three O's, which is probably the easiest and the tool that I started learning on just to learn how to do prompting. And then there's Comfy, which is really popular, but also complicated. And so Comfy UI, its workflows are very, so you string things together using nodes. And so you do a lot of it by hand. No, I'm not using a paid service. I run this all locally. So when I talk about the stuff that I'm using, automatic 1111, you can run locally. Focus, you can run locally. Comfy UI, you can run locally. And then if we go take a look, so this is the site that where you'll find models to do AI work. So like somebody generated this image using AI, right? Which is really cool. The really cool thing about it, and when you do like Civit AI, I recommend on your account to enable the not safe for work filters because a lot of this stuff may not be safe for work. But like this image, I think it's really cool. And you can see here that they used this LoRa, which modifies the model. They used a detail tweaker, and they used a double exposure, which gives it this interesting effect. You can get the prompt that they use, the negative prompts. You can look at the sampler, how many steps, and all of this stuff. So you can try to reproduce this. If we look here, this is the model that they use to generate this image. So I love this site because you can go in and you can learn from other people who are really good at this kind of stuff, how they did it. Um, and so if you want to run it locally, you just go into models. Um, and so we're looking at the top rated models. LoRa's are not models. They modify the way models work. So this is an actual model. This pony means that it's a special type of model. And you can actually filter this. So, we can go in here, and my favorite type is SDXL. So, when we look at this, you can see all the different stuff for SDXL, the different checkpoints. This one fixes hands. This one adds more details to images. This one's really cool because there's this thing called ControlNet that allows you to draw like skeletons, and then SDXL knows how to make bodies fit those skeletons. So some really cool stuff, but I don't want to get too distracted by that today. If you guys are really, really interested in this, yeah, you can generate images with your GPU. So my laptop has a 4080, but it's the laptop 4080, which kind of sucks because the laptop 4080 only has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, whereas the desktop 4080 has 16, which kind of limits what I can run. But I run local LLMs comfortably, 1066 gigabyte. So if you're doing 1066 gigabyte, my recommendation is don't use automatic 1111. Look for something that runs better in your VRAM. 6 gigabytes is going to be enough, but you're not going to be able to do SDXL. What you can do is SD 1.5, which is probably the most famous. And you can see there's a lot of stuff. There's probably more available for SD 1.5. And SD 1.5 runs comfortably in 4 gigabytes of VRAM. So yeah, I mean, these checkpoints look really real. I don't want to click into them because, well, actually, it's going to all be filtered because I'm not signed in. Well, and I have filters on anyway. But you can see, like, this picture of this guy, right? If you click on it, you can see that they use this realistic vision 6.0 B1 checkpoint, and this is the prompt they use, and nothing else. So they were able to generate this image of a face using just this prompt, just this negative prompt, and then these are settings that you would set up in your samplers. So you can generate very, very realistic stuff using SD 1.5 because it's so it's so I don't want to say advanced, but it's been around for so long that it's so optimized that people have really, really optimized it. Do I think AI is going to take over coding jobs? I look at AI. So while I was on my trip, I was listening to a podcast from an artist who was talking about AI and what AI is doing to art generation, right? AI squeezes out the lower end of things, right? And what do I mean by that? Typically, there's a lot of low barrier to entry stuff that's very mechanical, and AI tends to do that really, really well, right? Repetitive mechanical things, AI tends to do really, really well. Where does AI shine in coding? It shines in unit testing. It shines in boilerplate. Where does AI not shine in coding? Generating new stuff. It really, really sucks at that right now, right? I can't see into the future, so I don't know what's coming in the future. But in my experience, AI is really, really good at mimicking what it's seen before. It's really, really bad at coming up with new concepts, right? Um, one thing you'll learn with AI image generation is the reason that there are LoRa's and and training LoRa's is important is if you use a model that hasn't seen something before, it can't generate that. Um, and I think it's the same way with coding. I don't know how it's going to be in the future, right? But right now, if your model hasn't seen something, it really struggles to generate that something. And so, do I think it will take over? I think it's going to squeeze out the really, really. It's going to make developers more productive. And so it's going to squeeze out a lot of the stuff that took a lot of time, um, but now AI can do, right? Like unit testing used to take a lot of time. Now I can go into a file, write a comment, write unit tests, and it does an okay job for like 70 to 80% of the unit tests. I go through, fix the rest, and create the ones that it missed, and we're good to go, right? And so people who learn how to use AI are going to survive just fine. People who learn how to use their tools are going to survive just fine. People who understand coding are going to survive just fine. Um, the the places that AI are going to squeeze people out are like the mechanical websites, right? That you just throw up, right? So you go like I think Fiverr is going to take like a big hit from AI, right? Where in the near future, where you just want an e-commerce website, and I don't know, you pick one of the various e-commerce places. They've got an AI. The AI does for you what somebody on Fiverr would have done, and you're off to the races, right? Um, that's where I think a lot of tech jobs are going to disappear, and where it's going to become difficult for people, right? People who have made a really good living doing very mechanical, very rote stuff, and they probably have scripts to do a lot of what they're doing anyway, and they're making a lot of money doing it, right? Um, so, um, web. It's not that web dev has lower things. Like there are things in web dev that AI can't do yet. Um, and I think it will struggle to do. The other place where even if AI has become much better at writing code, um, the future of AIs is going to be in prompt engineering, um, right? Because the way we speak, um, we remember a lot of context and things like that, and we infer a lot of things when we talk to each other, right? And AI isn't so good at that, right? So, um, like, if I write a prompt for an image, and I've been thinking about like Star Wars a lot lately with the with the new show coming out, and then I was reading um, in the airport. I was reading about Rosario Dawson and Hayden Christensen and their reunion in Ahsoka that took place. Um, it was awesome if you watched the Clone Wars, and then you saw those episodes where they were talking in the world between worlds. Really, really awesome, right? But let's look at the Mandalorian, a really, really popular show, right? If you read a prompt, Baby Yoda and Mando um, in a scene, um, you know, fighting, you know, fighting stormtroopers, right? And then you say he is using the Force to lift one off the ground. right? Who does he refer to, right? Does it refer to Baby Yoda? Does it refer to Mando, right? For us, we know, right? We know that he refers to Baby Yoda because Baby Yoda can use the Force. Din Djarin cannot use the Force, right? We've got that context. We've seen the show, right? Um, there's cultural context there, right? AIs are not good at that. Um, and because they're not good at that, that he is very difficult for the AI to understand. So then, a prompt engineer goes in and they're like, oh, that he is not easy to understand. Let's modify that. That's now Baby Yoda, right? Baby Yoda is using the Force, right? But there's still trickiness in there, right? Because Baby Yoda, does that refer to Yoda from the Star Wars universe as a baby? Does it refer to Grogu, right? And so then a prompt engineer goes in, oh no, 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 this is the Mandalorian. This is Grogu, and right? And so it's the same way, even if AI gets better at writing code than I am, great, whatever. Turning customer needs into things that AI can generate takes skill, and it takes time to understand, and you need to understand the business. And so when you talk about developers at companies, you're talking about a lot of what you do isn't writing code. And so, yeah, I saw multiple agents self-prompting them. Yeah, and that one's a little bit crazy too. Self-prompting is interesting. But when you talk about a developer at a company, your value isn't in the code you write. And if your value is in the code you write, that's okay, right? But if your value is in the code you write, your job is the job that's probably going to be quickest taken over by AI. But that's okay. You don't have to be a developer whose value is in the code they write. There is a lot of other ways as a developer to be valuable while also contributing valuable code, right? And that's where you go from like junior to mid and senior into like staff and architect, right? So if you want to move into like staff level, architect level, that's where you need to start thinking differently, right? I'm not my code. The code I write is valuable, but that's not the value I provide, right? I can write valuable code, absolutely. But what value do I provide? I go in and I learn the business, right? A bill, I need to learn about payment rails. I need to learn about how we make payments. I need to learn about, what our customers do. What are our customers interested in? Things like that. And that allows me to make decisions that are outside of the code. I learned how to communicate, right? I learned how to write proposals. I learned how to communicate in a professional manner. And that allows me to communicate with customers. That allows me to communicate internally. And that allows me to take things that are difficult to understand and turn them into things that other people can understand, right? So I spend a lot of time creating analogies and things like that. And that's valuable, right? Because that allows me to let the developers do what they do really well in writing code, but it also allows me to provide information about what they're doing to decision makers, so decision makers can do what they do really well and make decisions, right? And understanding, bridging that gap is valuable, right? Knowledge about the industry is valuable. Working in the auto auction for as long as I did, auto auction industry for as long as I did, I've got knowledge about flooring. I've got knowledge about what it takes to run a car across an auction block. I've got knowledge about condition reports. I've got knowledge about part times, labor times, paint times, cost, like business knowledge, right? Stuff that's very, very valuable. And that's what makes you irreplaceable but promotable at a company, right? Your knowledge of the system and then how the business works makes you very, very valuable. but it also allows you to be promotable, right? If your value is only in the code you produce, um, then it's very, very easy to get locked into just the code you produce. And when a new, bigger, and better project comes along, it's also very, very easy to get locked into maintaining legacy code, which is often, where programmers go to die. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, when you get locked into legacy code, it's a drudge work, right? It's tough. And your project's always underfunded. It's always, I've maintained legacy code. Um, it's not where most devs want to be, right? They want to be out there doing the new stuff, but there's a lot of legacy code that has to be maintained. And if your value is in the code you produce, eventually your project will become legacy. Your value is in the code you produced for that project that's legacy. You maintain the legacy project, right? And I've seen this over and over again, that eventually the legacy project is no longer needed and those developers are let go, right? And then it's time to find a new job. So this got a little bit deeper than I originally intended, but if you're worried about AI, expand your value, right? AI produces code. Don't make your value in your code, right? Write valuable code, absolutely. Learn to write valuable code. But make your value in mentorship. Make your value in learning the business. Make your value in communication. Make your value, right? There's so many other things that you can do as a developer that will add value to who you are, so that, if coding is only a part of the whole package, right? And it can be a significant part. Like, I love to write code. And I tend to like to be like in a 50 to 60% code writing versus 40% other things, right? And depending on the project, that may or may not happen. And depending on where you are, in the junior, mid, senior, staff, architect level pyramid, right? That may never happen for you, right? You may never get 50 to 60% of your time spent writing code. So that's my take on the AI. And it's a bit all over the place, but there are things that AI does really, really well, and that's things that it's seen before. There are things that it doesn't do well. And so, make your value in the things that AI doesn't do well, and you'll be fine. Anyway, let's make sure that this all runs as we sit here and talk about stuff. But yeah, thank you for the questions. Okay, so all we've got left is ESLint. We're good. So let's see, pnpm nx, and we're gonna serve our blog. And let's see, let's hope it runs. If it runs, we're going to talk about how we can tell if we're running zone Angular. And then, well, it compiled, so that's good. And of course, I would click over there because here we go. So here we go. Here are our two articles. And if we click on this, oh yeah, we hadn't finished this up. And this scrolling animation is also broken. Okay. But our all articles has the same thing, and we can see that these are going to use the same pictures, right? So if we go back to the home, we can see that it's still this weird cave that looks like, the shadow makes it look like there's a bear because of the way our brains work. If we go here, it's still that same cave, right? And we'll always get green beans here. So how can we tell if we're using zone or zoneless Angular, right? And I am going to tell you guys right now, I'm stealing this idea from Deborah Carrata. So you know what? If I'm going to steal from her, let's give her a shout out on the channel, right? So let's go to youtube.com. Deborah Carrata. There we go. Deborah Carrata is my absolute favorite for learning new. What do I want to say? Like new concepts and new topics. And my reason for that is she's got a really good pedagogy. She is on Pluralsight too, and you should absolutely check out her Pluralsight stuff. I'm lucky that I've been able to consult for her on just her Pluralsight videos, some of her newer ones. And she actually asked me to where's her newest one? I want to show. Let's go here. Yeah. So this is I've watched this video a few times and jumped around in it. And I love this video. I highly recommend you guys go check this out. Let me put that in the chat. But her, just the way she goes through concepts is really good. And I highly recommend, like, her free stuff is really good. So I highly recommend checking her out. But in watching this video, there was a really cool idea that she had for how do you check if you've got zones enabled, right? Also Prime. I mean, I think everybody watches Prime, but another one of my absolute favorites that I highly recommend. Anyway, her suggestion is just drop here and type zone with a capital Z. If zone with a capital Z is defined, you are using Angular inside of a zone. Right? And you can see right here, zone.js is detected, zone aware promises, blah, 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 right? So we already know that we're inside of a zone. And, you know, the cool thing about this zone is that you can grab, you know, stuff off of the top of it. Like you can look at the current task. You can even see like the zone name that you're inside of, right? Because you can provide different names to zones and things like that. So I really, really liked her idea here. Usually the way that I was doing it in the past is I was watching the packages as they were built. And so, we're not going to see them here. But we can take a look, right? So if we do nx build Angular blog, we'll see that there is there's going to be a polyfills file. Oh, Angular, oh, NX Cloud. Okay. No, that's not it. This is so weird. I need to figure out what's going on here. Why it can't find this, but it can find it I think it has to do with the .analog file. I think it's trying to add the .ts to the end of it. Um, I'm not 100% certain. I need to figure that out. But anyway, the way I would do it is I would look at the polyfills file, and maybe if I add the verbose here, it might show us the files that it's building. Um, we've got that. We've got that. Oh, I'm not going to get the files because we're using NX Cloud and I got a cache hit. Um, so anyway, um, so we're using Zone because um, Zone is defined, right? So how do we remove Zone.js and what does that mean for us? The other thing I want to take a look at today, if we get some time, we've got about an hour, is I want to take a look at using the let operator also. Um, so if we go to angular.dev, and inside of here, we look for the @let. Nice, flow control. That's what I want. Um, Built-in flow control. So here we're looking at the flow control. We've got if for switch. So the @let isn't here yet. So if we just look at Angular, @let flow control. Okay, let's go to the Angular blog. So zoneless server side. This is the other thing I want to take a look at is using Wiz, but I need to get the SSR stuff going. So we're probably going to spend a little bit more time in the blog actually getting SSR working. But maybe let is pre-release, and so it's not documented anywhere. We're going to take a look at let also. Oh, in my head, I just moved and I felt everything move around me. So, but yeah, how do we remove this, right? So let's get WebStorm going. And what do we do to go zoneless? So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to our app config. Inside of app config, it's TRPC client. I think I'm going to take out, but content, time helper, file router. So what we can do is we can just say, hey, provide experimental zoneless, right? And this is this also the check no changes for debug. Um, so um, this one I need to dig into more, but this is another one I want to just learn a bit about. So this function will provide its own ng zone implementation. It needs to come after any other ng zone provider, including provide zone change detection and provide experimental zoneless change detection. Right? We don't have provide zone change detection, and we can verify that. And that's one of the things that you would need to do if you have it. So if we look for provide zone, see, we don't have it. So by default, it's going to use zone change detection, but we're going to provide experimental zoneless change detection. And that is not everything we need to do. And we can verify that again, right? So here we are. If we look, we can see that we've still got zone defined. And why is zone defined? The other thing we can do is like here, we can check if we pop this out, and we'll go back to the console, and we'll just look at this mapped one here, right? So this line right here, line 58, we're going to provide a breakpoint here. And if, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Bring that up. Let's bring that up. And if we refresh this, we're going to pause here. And if we look at the call stack, we should see, we show everything. We'll see that there are some zone stuff in here too. It's like here we're seeing zone.js, right? Invoke task, run task, drain microtask queue, zone.js, zone.js. So look at all of this stuff that zone.js is doing for us. So this is our anonymous function. And this actually, this is from our start view transition. I don't think this is from us. I think this is Angular. Yeah, it's on the debuggers. But then we can see zone, 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 right? And then zone, 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 zone. So this promise dot then zone patches that, right? And then zone, 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 zone. Here's another anonymous chunk. So this is from promise. So this is Angular itself, right? So this chunk does the next, this does the next, more next, right? And so, this is us passing that value up through RxJS. And these are, all of our chunks as we're jumping out of. I'm actually curious where our code actually starts. So we're still activating child routes. So here we're creating the content in Angular. Here we're rendering the view. And this is where our code actually starts. We're telling it, and this isn't even our code. This is our code, but this is our code template compiled down. These thetas here, or no, these are zeros. Are these zeros? Yeah, they're zeros. This is a weird font. I don't like this font. But like these thetas here, these are Angular marking things as, internal. Don't use them. If you use them, they're going to change. Your stuff's going to break. So here we go. Here's our analog components. Here's our get all articles, right? And our two signal wrapper. This is our service. It's getting our articles from Contentful. And then, this is where we actually hit the breakpoint. But we can see that we've got zone, and there's a lot of zone in here, right? So if we can remove all of these calls, that's a big deal. So how do we do that? Two issues. Form field, okay. And a deprecated feature use. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, oh, I didn't continue. We're still stuck in a breakpoint. That's why we've got no content. So how do we get rid of zone, right? So there's a couple of other places we need to find zone. So if we go and we search for zone.js, right, we've got it in our pnpm lock. Angular core. So here we go. We've got an import for zone.js node. So we want to take this out. So that removes zone from there. And we go take a look at the next one. We've got a zone.js here that we're importing in our main TS. So now we've no longer got zone there. And if we search for zone again, so now we're all in packages or pre-built stuff, right? So I've taken zone out, but let's go take a look at our page, right? So if we refresh, and I search for zone, it's actually not there. The zone is no longer defined, right? And so now, if we go here and we pop this out again, and let's throw our debugger here on the map, right? And we refresh, and now we go take a look at our call stack. Notice here that we aren't getting any zone stuff anymore. So our main TS bootstraps the application, but right now we're calling done promise. Our bootstrap, we've loaded it, right? Our initial navigation happens, and then we're into our behavior subject immediately. But we've got no zone.js in place, right? And because of that, we don't have to serve that package either. So delete that breakpoint. Let's turn that off. So things should get faster for us, right? So if we move this to the side and go back to our console, and then we just continue, right? We've got that. Disconnected port. Do we keep getting that? No. Okay. So there we go. Hey, ciao. Hey, good to see you, man. It's been a long time. Um, you have been traveling and crazy busy. Happy to see you. We're just removing Zone from our analog project, and it looks like it went flawlessly, right? So we go back to the home page again here. Ooh, oh, never mind. Yeah, that's the way this is designed. I was like, oh no, we've got a problem. We don't have a problem. That's just the way it is. Um, go to our all articles. We're good. So we've got Zone. Um, yeah, I saw your post on how Angular 3 was actually fixed by zoneless code. And then it was the automatic event, like the automatic collation of events, right? Two things working in tandem fixed a whole bunch of zone Angular 3 stuff, which I really want to use Angular 3 for my next project, but that next project got pushed out just a little bit because I want to get a whole bunch of other stuff done to zoneless. There's some things I want to check here, right? So if we go here and we go to forest, we're good. So our themes are already working, which is cool. We've seen that our navigation works. We're also seeing that when we navigate between pages, we're getting the transitions, right? So things are fading in, fading out, and we're getting our transitions. Um, I was hoping for something to break, to be honest, but we use signals everywhere, and because we use signals everywhere, nothing broke. If I want to make it a multiplayer game, um, multiplayer game means that I have to balance better. um, But you know what? I don't have to do balancing unless it gets popular and people actually want to play it. We can try. We can try multiplayer. Curious. I have to think about it. Like, I'd like to think through doing like a serverless multiplayer, but that might be hard to do in a browser or an Electron app. Um, but you know what? The code's going to all be up there for free. Maybe we'll do. Maybe we can do a multiplayer. Maybe it's a good excuse to get back into .NET and implement a .NET Server backend and use Angular to render the front end and draw stuff. Um, I'm willing to release new versions on demand if I run into issues. Dude, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Um, but you guys, I didn't expect this upgrade to go so smooth. I'm actually a little bit disappointed. Um, so we're gonna have to generate. That is such a stupid comment to make. I'm a little bit disappointed that things didn't break. Um, but yeah, that's where we are. The upgrade went so smooth that things didn't break. Um, we'll generate some stuff that will show some of the gotchas, right? So we'll do that. But let's get this committed. I can't believe how quick and smooth that went. It required 3 file changes. Um, Again, if you guys are going to go zoneless, um, all you need to do is add it here into your application config in your providers, and that's really it. Um, Other than that, Well, actually, you need to you might have a zone change detection provided, and I think that happens by default in Angular 18 new projects. If you have that, you'll need to remove the provide zone change detection and just replace it with provide experimental. But other than that, then all you need to do is remove your zone.js from your stuff. Oh, I wanted to take a look. So one thing we can do, and let's pop this out for this, is in your application, um, no, it's under performance, I believe. Is it? What am I? Is it under recorder? Let's try this one. So we'll create a new recording. Yep, grab this, and then we're going to start recording. And actually, let's end recording. We're going to delete this one. Oh, wait, can we look at the performance panel? Here we go. Or is it under Lighthouse? We'll analyze our page load for Lighthouse. Um, what I'm looking for specifically, and our Lighthouse scores are going to suck because I'm running Lighthouse with things enabled, right? So my SEO is not good. Accessibility is decent. But what I'm looking for is you can actually get your bundles. Chrome has a Webpack bundle analyzer built into it. And where is that? In the Angular app profile, start recording, and let's just refresh this. Now, can I not? Did I just break it? Did I really just break this? Um, and it could be that I'm using Arc. Um, where is the we set the viewport, we navigated. Um, there's like a Webpack bundle analyzer built into there's one built into Chrome, if I remember right. Where is it? I remember seeing it. How come I Yeah, you might need to import Zone.js into your test, and that's something we definitely need to take a look at. But we have removed zone chow. You know, we don't have zones not defined, and we looked at our call stacks, and none of our call stacks have zone in them either. But what I'm looking for um, is in Chrome. Um, there's the API mission policy. In Chrome, there was a way to look at the Webpack bundle stuff. Or not the, but it wouldn't be Webpack. It would be ESLint, or not ESBuild. Um, but I don't remember how to do it. Is it in the bottom panel? Um, Coverage. I don't know what that is. Developer resources. It's not the one I'm looking for either. You can block network requests. That's not what we're looking for. Performance monitor. Oh, that's cool. That's real cool. I should play around with that more. I don't remember where it is. But I wanted to take a look at the polyfills. Um, and I need to fix the build for ESBuild to um, maybe we'll take a look at our bundles. Um, that might be a good way to go. And then we'll fix our application, right? So to fix our bundles, we've got this issue, right? npm nx build Angular blog. And if we run this, then we're going to get this error about the was this going to run? No. Okay. The components, right? The header and the footer component. On app component TS, line 24. App.component.ts. So these imports it doesn't like. But we know this is here because if we pop this open, here's our components. Here's our footer. Why are we? And there's our blog component from our footer. And there's our header also. I don't know why it doesn't like this. Does it? No, it doesn't come down to that. If I add a TS ignore, does it build? Let's just see. Adding the TS, man, walking up the hill for a fat guy like me is challenging. I need some of that power. Ah, yeah. Um, that's one of the things that's really interesting. So adding the TS ignore, why do I need to add that TS ignore? Is there a way to tell? So while that's building, let's take a look at our analog here, and let's just see TS ignore. And I probably need to look at single file components, and inside of here, let's just search for ignore. And maybe I need to add something that I'm missing in a config file somewhere. So I think I've got this enabled. Well, I would have to, right? So if we just go to the on a blank now. Let's just search for support analog format. Yeah, so we've got this here. I'm going to remove TRPC. I'm not using it, and oh, it looks like we need to clean some stuff up in here too, maybe. So that's enabled. Absolutely. That's what we're trying to figure out right now. Abradores is how I can get rid of the TS ignore. I agree. I don't know that I agree with not hiring somebody based on the usage of TS ignore. Oh, okay. That's probably my problem. Because I'm using analog files outside of the project's root. Um, this is probably what I need to do. Um, so in the support analog format, we need to add so here support analog format here, and if we look at this, and what we can do is we can just put this over here and that over there. And that looks horrible. But we can shrink this a bit. So it's a little bit easier to see. No, I've already got that run. So if we change this from just a true to an object, we say, hey, include here, and we don't want, can we do, oh, we're in a TS file. We can't have trailing. So here, so the header, if we take a look, yeah, it still failed, even though I used it. So app component.ts. So we want Angular blog source app, and then components. So we should be able to go here and we just do, we want source /**. Actually, we can just do app /components /**. And that should do it. So now if we go take a look at our app component.ts, let's see if removing that now works. Nope. So this should come from dev source app and then components. /*. Let's see that. And I may have to reload this. Let's just see if it builds with that in place. Because source app components should be fine. And then we've got to figure out what's going on with Contentful also. Create client from Contentful. Why it doesn't like that too. But yeah, the reason we were adding that TS ignore is because I wasn't following the configuration properly. And when you move your stuff to a different directory than the root, you need to tell analog about it, and then it should be just fine. Okay, so now we're down to the contentful stuff. Create client is not exported by node modules, contentful 10.11.7. Okay, let's go take a look at contentful service.ts. And now we can just pull this off the side. That is one thing that I really wish Max had. So like if I go to the top, I can, this is just built in, right, by default, and I can just tell it, hey, this is where I want to be. And then like if I go to the side, I can, or I can dock to, I think to do the bottom, I've got to do one of these at the top, but um, I think you have to pay for something. If you don't, I would love to hear about it. Maybe we should go back to React. Oh, if you want React, you're in the wrong place. I am incredibly bad at React. Um, so we've got this in place. Let's see. It was the contentful service. Um, oh, here comes my puppy. Hey, how are you? That was the so we couldn't take our dogs with us, and they were. We had some friends that came and were eating our dogs and stuff, but they were they were left by themselves for quite a long time, and man, they missed us. So she's really loving today. Just wants to say hi. Um, Great dog. Um, Golden Doodles are amazing dogs. So create client. Let's just run this again, just making sure I didn't skip anything on it, but it doesn't look like it. So create client is here. If I look at it here, it's showing up as an any though. Where am I using this client? Things there. Here it's showing up as an any. Is create client really deprecated? No, it's right there. Is not exported by node modules. So we're going to have to go digging into our node modules. Let's go down here and into our node modules. And we're going to look into what's it saying? It's not exported by node modules contentful 10.11.7. So if we look at contentful and dist, and then contentful browser.js. So inside of here, there should be a create client. It is exported here. Here's the function. Is it trying to? No, it's not trying to use the node because it's saying .min.js. Oh, where's my min.js? There's the params. And there's the declaration for create client. And there's, I don't see a min.js. But it wants to look at my PNPM and then contentful. Wow, I've got a lot of stuff in here. Contentful. So 10.11.7 versus 10.11.1. So contentful, then node modules, then contentful dist. I don't even see the min.js. Was it there under 10.11.1? Nope. Is there an issue with TypeScript.md? So it obviously can't find it. And contentful is pointing to the right place. Package.json is pointing to a min.js, but I don't see one here. Oh, that's because you have to drop things down. There's our minified. Do I have to import contentful from here? The type. That's not what we want. I guess the other thing we could do is import star as contentful from contentful. And then we should be able to do contentful dot create client. That is no longer defined as any. My client is now with an undefined. Does that mess anything else up? So it's interesting that I have to do this kind of an import. I'm wondering what that will do to my build. Let's go ahead and build that. Define, yeah, Jason, why not have two monitors? I have two monitors. But yeah, let me take a look at this roadmap for you. And we'll take a look here really quick while that's building. Backend developer. Alternative option, pick this or purple, order in roadmap. So I like this stuff right here. Like, how does the internet work? Oh, this is good stuff. Um, I think a lot of people don't get this kind of information. And this is really helpful with backend in particular, especially understanding like what is an HTTP call, what are the different protocols that you can use, stuff like that. Rust and Go. Interesting. So they want you to learn Rust right away. That's one that I really want to pick up. Go. Oh, pick this or the purple. Huh? I don't understand what that means, but I think this is all really, really good. I think Rust and Go. Rust is a good one. I don't know a lot about Go, but Rust is on my roadmap of things to learn. Learning a language for the backend. Yeah, any of these will be fine. Really, really, it depends on what you want to do. I know this one the best. Java, I know it, but it's like one of my least favorites, I'll be honest. PHP, I can't comment on. Ruby was a lot of fun, but I haven't done it in years. Python is really easy to learn and read, and it's everywhere. And JavaScript, I mean, obviously, I know JavaScript and TypeScript. So, yeah, I agree. Any one of these languages will be fine on the back end. Good to know. Um, Learning about Git is helpful. GitHub is helpful. Um, GitLab and Bitbucket maybe less so. We use GitLab at Bill. Um, so understanding GitLab is helpful, but really, if you know Git, you can use GitLab and not have too many problems. Um, Really, I think the differences here are just going to be coming down to the site. There are small differences between GitHub and GitLab. I learned Bitbucket a long time ago. So we were using SVN and then, um, and now I can't remember. What was it called? Um, we can look at Bitbucket and see um, what it supports. We were using a version control that wasn't Git at the time. I can't remember what it was called. Um, I also think it was an Atlassian. Um, I also think it was an Atlassian product. Um, what was it called? Documentation. And I can't remember. That's hilarious. It's going to come to me like a while, like after the stream. But Um, Bitbucket I don't use as much, but these are all fairly similar. So learning one's probably worth it. Relational databases. I recommend Postgres. Um, MySQL's fine. All of these are fine. Oracle, I probably wouldn't recommend. And the main reason I wouldn't recommend Oracle is because it's so expensive. Same with MS SQL. These are both going to be super expensive. And the crazy thing about them is the tooling can be expensive to work with them. So these top four usually have good tooling, good support in the community. So definitely recommend them. Um, Learn about APIs, RESTful, JSON APIs, SOAP not so much, and maybe that's what gray means. Yeah, SOAP it's really rare to use it. gRPC. I mean, there are a bunch of things like TRPC, gRPC, things like that out there that are ways of communicating. You can learn them. They're not super necessary from the beginning. I would actually put GraphQL maybe in the purple, especially if you're looking to build for React front ends. GraphQL seems to be highly sought after in React front ends. But if you build your RESTful backends properly, GraphQL sometimes isn't necessary. I haven't had to use GraphQL too much until I got to Bill, and now we rely on it heavily. I will admit I'm not a um, I'm not a fan of GraphQL. I see what benefits it provides, but um, I've built REST my entire life, and JSON APIs. These both have been just fine. I haven't needed GraphQL, so um, and then like the HADIOS and the Open API specs. These are good to know if you're doing REST. Um, this is huge. Understanding CDNs and then Redis or different types of caching, very important to know. Um, Client side caching. Um, I wonder, is this like caching headers? This is probably caching headers and stuff like that. So all of this is, I think, is highly useful. Like this one, if you want to get pedantic and stuff like that, beat people over the head with this. But really understanding Open API, I think, is useful. Um, so I think this is a bit misleading. MD5 is fine for some types of hashing because it's fast, but I wouldn't use it for security, and maybe that's why it's here under security. SHA, like some of the SHA encryption is also not secure with MD5. And that's why we have things like bcrypt and scrypt and blowfish and triple des and things like that, because like triple des is basically running a hashing algorithm 3 times, and bcrypt is a way to slow that down so that it's unnoticeable for users, but somebody's attacking you. So understanding this is extremely important, and even web security knowledge, very, very important if you're building APIs. You should spend your time here. You should not implement your own like password authentication and stuff like that. Use some sort of third-party provider. That's my suggestion. But you should understand this stuff and understand why it's important and where to use it and things like that. OWASP is incredibly important. And when I worked in cybersecurity, we lived on this page right here, the OWASP top 10. And it's updated periodically, but understanding what are the top 10 security attacks and how to mitigate them, hugely important for backend devs. And so like, SSRF is the 10th on here, right? Broken access control. So this is somebody who manages to break, your account access and stuff. Cryptographic failures. That goes back to what we were looking at here. Understanding, different types of hashing algorithms. And what hashing algorithms are cryptographically secure and which ones are not. And like injection attacks, there's all sorts of them, from LDAP through SQL through cross-site scripting, all sorts of fun injection attacks. Insecure design. I actually have to take a class on this every year at Bill to make sure that my design, I'm not implementing insecure design stuff. Security misconfiguration. You should understand this if you're setting up servers. This is a good one to give to your bosses if you're running anything older than Angular 15, because you're running outdated code that's not maintained. And so if they want to stay on the version that you're on, you probably need to look at like a service like Hero Devs, which is going to be more expensive, or you need to look at how do you get upgraded, right? But vulnerable and outdated components are a huge problem. And then This one is interesting because snort rules and things like that, setting up your server so that you understand when you're being attacked is really important. Um, and sometimes attacks can take days. Like they're getting good at hiding their attacks. So understanding how to look at them. The other thing, like, multi-factors, password, SAML, all of this stuff, you should understand that. Yeah. And, security logging and monitoring failures, giving too much information or not enough information. These are both important to understand. Um, and yeah, deserialization and then SSRF is, you know, 10 on the list. But if you go through the OWASP top 10 and you look at your project and just fix them one at a time, your project is going to be more secure. You're less likely to wind up on the news. Um, and if you're not talking about these, you probably should be, and you should probably bring them up. Um, so I love that they're talking OWASP here. Cores, understanding that, yes. SSL and TLS, yes. Um, CSP policies, very important, like nonce tokens and things like that. And then server security, very important. And then, yeah, secure by default is API security best practices. So deny by default, things like that. Never get into a state where you just allow access when you don't know what's going on. Integration unit, yep, these all look good. CI/CD, very important if you want to be if you want to be DevOps. Very important to understand. You should probably understand it anyway to understand how your stuff makes it to the web server. Scaling databases, definitely spend some time here. Understand how it works. Database indexes, very good to know. Data replication, yeah, these I agree. You can learn these later, but they're important as your site scales. But understanding the implications of indexes and how they can speed things up at the cost of space, very important. JOT, basic auth, token auth, OAuth, cookie based, OpenID, and SAML. Yeah, you should understand all of these. I even wouldn't mark these as gray. I think you should understand them all. Understand when to use them and when not to use them. There's some of these that I wouldn't use too often, like basic auth and cookie based. Can get you into trouble if you're not careful. So, don't put them on something that's sensitive security wise. But yeah, more about databases, ORMs. Yeah, understanding those. And, Chow has an ORM. ACID, very, very important to know. Transactions and transaction boundaries, good to know. The N+1 problem, yeah. Okay, yeah. I wanted to make sure that I understood what they meant here. Yeah, N+1 um, is, and you run into this with very, very chatty backends that weren't designed to serve the front end. So a lot of times as a backend engineer, it's easy to get stuck thinking in the structure of the data and not in the structure that the data needs to be in from the front end. That's where this N+1 problem comes up a lot, where you might have like a user and then that user has an ID for their address and things like that. And so then you start, you get the user and then you're like, oh, now I need the address. So you ask for the address and things like that, where joins and things like that. The opposite of this is getting too much data, right? So structuring your backend in a sane way, but then providing data in a smart way to the client can really solve a lot of problems. And this is why I haven't used GraphQL so much, because we tend to work on the N+1 problems at places that I've worked at before, things like that. Normalization's important with with relational databases. I guess you do normalization in document-based databases, but I don't know. Um, normalization is important to understand, but one thing I will tell you is that overly aggressive normalization can actually hurt the productivity of your database. Let's put it that way. Sometimes copied data is cheaper than the cost of normalization, especially if your queries start to grow and get crazy, or your indexes, because a lot of times duplicated data may be smaller than the size of the indexes that you create to query them, which is really weird. So back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s, disk space was expensive. And so aggressive normalization was a big thing. It's not so much a big thing anymore because disk space is pretty cheap, and document databases, I mean, you'll often, duplicate data. And again, things can be cheap. So this often isn't that big of a deal, but you should understand it and know what it means. Failure modes, this is very important to understand. So yeah, like, you know, locks and thundering herd and cascades and deadlocks and yep, all of this stuff is really, really good to understand. Um, and then yeah, how do you profile your performance? Gang of Four Design Patterns. I love this book. Excellent book. Um, understanding understanding design patterns is a common way for us to talk. I don't necessarily think you need to implement design patterns just to implement them. DDD is another good place to think about and talk. I just saw the author of the famous DDD book said he wished he had added some of the chapters that he put in the back in the beginning because people get stuck so much in the beginning of the book that they don't really realize the benefits of DDD. So understanding DDD is important. Things like, do we give it here? Does it give it here? Um, well, I'm not seeing it here, but things like understanding value objects are hugely important concepts from DDD, but they don't require you to implement all of DDD. So quite often, things like a social security number from the United States is implemented as a string, right? Because it's 3 numbers dash 2 numbers dash 4 numbers. Phone numbers are another good example of this, and they change based on country, right? And you wind up with these messy things. So they often store phone numbers as strings. That's primitive obsession. I'm not going to go through all of this. I actually need to end, but I do think this is good, really good. And most of this stuff you can go through quickly. Like when we were looking here at failure modes, just understanding what these are and then digging into them a little bit more, right? I mean, it's just a small little blurb. So I like this. This is a good resource. Thanks for sharing. Um, let's go take a look and see if we built. We did build. So tomorrow we're going to look at our holy crap. Oh, I know why this is so big. I know exactly why this is so big. And it comes down to the fact that I'm including a library that we can take out. So we will take a look at this tomorrow. But I'm going to end here. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. And thank you.